Welcome to my video about my Combat Only Ultimate Iron Man and my plans to complete the Inferno. Throughout my progress vids, I've had multiple requests to discuss my plans for Inferno and gear/upgrades. Now, sadly, as my progress is recorded months ago, I can't just talk about it throughout my gameplay, but I like the idea, so I've made a separate video for it. I'm going to break this video into 3 parts. The first part is training Slayer, the second part is raids, both Chambers of Xeric as well as Theatre of Blood, and the final part is obviously the Inferno, as well as like dream gear throughout trying to attempt the Inferno. First off, for part 1 in training Slayer, we'll need to obtain certain items to help for this grind. I'm going to start off with the items I plan to acquire in order of obtainability. So the first main item I want to acquire is the Rune Crossbow. This item will help me progress throughout the account, as well as potentially help me in the late game content, such as Theatre of Blood or Chambers of Xeric. Now, to acquire this item, I need to either make it, obtain it as a drop, or get it from an elite clue scroll. I can't make it with 1 fletching, so that eliminates that option. I think it will be very unlikely to complete any elite clue scrolls in this account, so that grind sounds terrible, and that leaves us with the last option of obtaining it as a drop. The only 2 monsters in all of RuneScape that drops the Rune Crossbow is Kriara and the Crazy Ark. Now, I can't access Kree because I'm locked out of the God Wars dungeons due to some small rocks that have a 15 agility requirement. That means that the Crazy Ark is the only way for me to obtain this item. Now, due to the fact that this boss is located in the wilderness, I prefer to do this grind before any of the other ones I'm about to discuss. I could do the suicide method and have a death spawn and then go kill the Crazy Ark, but that still wouldn't work for any of my untradables, which are some of the next items I plan to discuss. So this item is something I plan to obtain nice and early into my account's progression. Another benefit of killing the Crazy Ark is that it also has 2 other drops that can be hugely beneficial to my account. And these items are the Amulet of Power and the Red Dragonhide Body. The Power Ami will actually be my best in slot amulet forever, unless I'm somehow lucky enough to get a trimmed glory from a hard clue. Unlikely. And the Red Dragonhide Body is going to be the best body I can use until I either obtain a Black Dragonhide Body from a hard clue, or Carol's Leather Top, which are both super late game items anyway. After obtaining these items, I will then feel safe to obtain my untradables, such as a Dragon Defender. It's obviously a terrific item to use for any account, and not much more is needed to talk about why I would want this item. Then, I would also like to get the Fighter Torso and Fighter Hat. Most people obtain the Torso sometime throughout their account, as it's a very useful and easy to get item. Now, the Fighter Hat is less useful for most accounts, as there are better alternatives. However, for me, that just isn't the case. I don't have access to a Zerk or a Nate helm, and no other helms that are low level content give positive attack bonuses. So these 2 items make the list. As these items are obtainable on any account, there is no problem in acquiring them. And the final melee untradable item I would like to achieve is the Fire Cape. This item becomes a little harder as I don't have the ability to make prayer potions, but there are alternative ways to get potions, which I'll talk about a little later. So those are the key items I plan to achieve in my account nice and early for progression throughout Slayer. Now let's talk about weapon and armor. We've got our melee helm, body, shield, amulet, and cape sorted. We just need legs, boots, a ring, gloves, and obviously a weapon. For the legs, I plan to just buy rune from a shop somewhere. There are several shops throughout RuneScape and they are not too hard to achieve. Ideally, I would upgrade these to dragon plate legs and maybe barrow plate legs throughout my journey, but not needed necessarily. For boots, there are obviously climbing boots, and then metal boots that I can upgrade as my Slayer level increases, with dragon boots being the ultimate goal at 83 Slayer. Then for a ring, the obvious choice is a Berserker ring, which I could eventually imbue through Nightmare Zone. Now, gloves is a tricky one. I have 3 choices for melee. The easiest to achieve is Shazian Gloves 5, but they only give a +3 strength bonus. I could instead go for Granite Gloves, which give a +7 strength bonus. However, they do have negative range and mage bonuses, and are also a 1 out of 500 drop from Grotesque Guardians, but they are still a huge upgrade over Shazian. And then, possibly the best gloves for me to achieve, in my opinion, is the Combat Bracelet. The only way for me to achieve this is once again through clue scrolls, and elite clue scrolls, but like I said, completing elites on this account might not be possible, so this just goes on the Dream Gear list, with items such as the Trimmed Glory. And then finally, the most important piece of equipment to talk about is the weapon. To start off, like most other Iron Men do as well, I think the Rune Sim is the best choice to use from the very get-go. The next upgrade for this account then comes at 55 Slayer. After I unlock Turoth, I can go for the Leaf-Bladed Sword. And sadly, this may be my best weapon until late game. I don't have access to any dragon weapons as they are all locked behind quests which require skills above level 1, and the only possible dragon weapon which is viable that I could actually use is the Dragon Sword, and that unfortunately has a drop from worms of 1 in 10,000 off task and 1 in 2,000 on task. This monster requires 62 Slayer, but isn't even easily accessible for my account, so we'll have to see how that goes. Now, the next potential upgrade for the weapon is the Leaf-Bladed Battle Axe, which are a drop from Kurask at a rate of 1 in 1026. They also require level 70 Slayer to kill. And then after that, I don't think there are any more upgrades until the long grind of 85 Slayer for the Abyssal Whip. The whip could of course be upgraded to the Tentacle Whip at 87 Slayer, but this would only be used if I was doing high-end PVM stuff like raids. That's pretty much the gear I plan to train Slayer with, but we should also discuss range and mage as these stats are obviously needed when we're going for the Inferno. But they might not be used as much until the actual Inferno grind, which is kind of weird. Anyway, for range, I've already discussed the Rune Crossbow. However, if I'm also able to get the Magic Shortbow from either a Spiritual Ranger in the Wilderness or a Hard Clue, then I would have two different methods to train range with. Now, sadly for range gear, I'm not actually able to complete Dragon Slayer on this account, as it has a hidden requirement of 8 crafting for Iron Man, which locks me out of using the green D-Hide body. But like discussed earlier, I can get the red or black Dragonhide body, which are obviously better than the green Dragonhide body anyway. For chaps, I can obviously buy green D-Hide from various shops, and then eventually I can get the red D-Hide chaps from worms as they have a common drop rate of them. Or if I get lucky, I could get black D-Hide chaps from a hard clue instead. Now, Vambraces are easy enough to get after 65 Slayer. I kill Dust Devils, which drop both the red and black D-Hide vamps. The final thing to talk about for ranged is the ammo for the bows. Now, as I can't fletch my own ammo, I need to either buy it from shops or collect them as a drop. For the Rune Crossbow, the only two types of bolts I can actually buy from shops are Bronze Bolts for 1 GP each, and Broad Bolts for 35 Slayer points for 250 bolts. As you can see, the Bronze Bolts only have a plus 10 range strength, while Broad have plus 100. So using Broad is definitely a better choice. Now, I could also get Runite Bolts from a variety of monsters, but they only have a plus 15 range strength over Broad, and I won't be able to attach any gem tips to them, so I don't really think it's needed. Now, back to the Magic Shortbow. First, I could imbue it into a Magic Shortbow Eye, which gives it a plus 6 range bonus, as well as lowering the spec from 55% to 50%. Then, the obtainability of arrows is so much better for this weapon. Like, I can buy all arrows from the shop, and won't need to waste Slayer points for good ammunition. Just some cash. For mage training, I won't be killing too many monsters with spells, as melee or range will just always be faster, I think. But I am able to buy all runes from various shops throughout RS. But sadly, as the Mage Guild shop is locked behind the Hand in the Sand quest, I'll need to buy my Nats and Laws at Mage Bank, but honestly, that's not even too bad. For mage weapons, I won't be able to use Ivan's Blast, which is a really good spell, but because it requires Underground Pass, which gives agility experience, I'll have to be using low-level spells instead. But that's fine, because my end goal for Slayer is actually level 87, which obviously unlocks the Trident of the Seas. So this is the conclusion of part 1, where I hope to get 87 Slayer and all the items I just talked about. Now, part 2, Raids, Chambers of Xeric and the Theatre of Blood. This is possibly going to make or break my account. In the first part, even if it takes a really long time, it's obviously possible to achieve 87 Slayer with 1 in all non-combat stats. But getting the necessary items from both COX and TOB with this account's restrictions might be a struggle. By this point, I will want to train my combat stats to pretty much max in everything so I can contribute as much damage as possible, as well as use the 99 range skill cape perk to finally obtain an accumulator. I think, due to this account's inability to achieve standard gear that normal players can achieve, Regular Void is going to be my best bet for gear to use within the raids. By this point, I should be 87 Slayer and have access to some of the better PVM weapons. This is an example of the gear setup that I would use for TOB on my UIM. Now, I thought I would want to conserve as much space as possible for potions and food to make sure I could actually progress throughout the raid, but honestly, this second part of my entire video will probably change as I learn more about TOB and COX when I eventually get up to that stage on my account. Some items that I could get to help me progress throughout the raids are maybe the Imbued Mage Cape, Mage's Book, Brimstone Boots, God Boots, Dragon Warhammer. That last one might be a bit of a dream, not entirely sure. I don't want to go much further into how I would actually complete the raids, except to talk about potions. So, getting high level potions is obviously a requirement for high-end PvM tasks such as raids and Inferno. And I've had some comments saying that I should train Herblore or it just won't be possible. But there are ways to obtain high-end potions without the need to train Herblore. There are several easy to kill monsters that drop useful potions, such as Skeletal Wyverns for prayer potions, Dagonoth Kings for supersets, and interestingly enough, Cowfight Queen for Saradomin and Brews and Ranging Pots, and actually quite a few more as well. However, there are only two ways for me to get stamina potions. The first is waiting for Dr. Jekyll randoms and then giving him a clean torso for a 4-dose stamina, but the better way is Theatre of Blood. I can buy Super Restores and Saradomin and Brews for 3 points each, and Staminas for 1. So, my plan in the future is to stock up on these potions and then use them for high-end PvM stuff, including the Inferno. Now, getting these potions from Theatre of Blood actually isn't too hard. All I need to do is beat the first 2 rooms, which are Maiden and Bloat, and then I'll be able to buy potions for roughly 10 points worth of value, and then I'll just repeat. In these rooms, I should almost never really use supplies. I mean, if I have 1 or 2 other people who kind of know what they're doing, this should actually be a breeze. So as long as everything works out like that, the potions are actually sorted. But let's actually talk about why I need to do raids. Possibly the biggest restriction for this account in achieving the Inferno Cape is the inability to complete Desert Treasure. I can't access the Ancient Spellbook for multiple reasons, and this is where the real test comes for this account, I believe. I need an alternative way to heal throughout the Inferno without using supplies, and sadly I also won't have access to the SGS because I can't get into God War's dungeon. So that's where TOB comes in again. The Sanguine SD staff is what I plan to use. Now, I haven't seen people use that in the Inferno because Ancients is just better for a variety of reasons. More healing, has freezes, doesn't cost bank to use. But putting that aside, I do think the staff will work. If I am able to do TOB and get the staff, then by that point I'll have enough cash to spend on blood runes because it is very expensive. But honestly, my whole account is to get this Inferno Cape, so I'm more than willing to put the grind in to make more cash if I need to as well. The only other item I would want from TOB, surprisingly enough, is the Justicar Face Guard. But if I'm able to get the staff before the Face Guard, I would also set it for a Verix Helm, which would be a lot easier to obtain. And finally, probably the longest grind for this account, which I'm not 100% sure at this moment is even possible, is the Chambers of Xeric. The Chambers of Xeric is very different from the Theatre of Blood. With the theatre, you really just need to kill the monsters and move on. It's not too hard. You don't really need other skills, it's really just train your combat stats, get good items, and go in. But that's different for Chambers. There are many things that you kind of need to have, which I just do not have. So first off, when I actually do Chambers, I don't think I'm going to be getting a lot of points, and that's going to make getting items very hard. And sadly, the one item I think I need from Chambers is the hardest item to get. Well, one of the 3 hardest items to get. Obviously, it's a Twisted Bow. If I were able to get the Twisted Bow, I do think this grind is possible. I'm pretty sure people have done the Inferno with just the Twisted Bow, so theoretically, if I could get the Twisted Bow, then I don't even need the staff, but I definitely think I'm not good enough to do that. I think it's better for me to actually just get the staff and all this. Plus, I won't have the best range armor anyway, so if I can get the staff, I'll do that. Now, getting the Twisted Bow is obviously a very hard item to get. But if I do get it, I will also be getting Dragon Arrows from COX, which is really good because they're obviously the arrows I'd want to use for the Inferno. And even though I said there's only really one item I would want from COX, I would also go for the Prayer Scrolls. I mean, even if I got super lucky and got the Twisted Bow in my first KC, I would need to grind out Dragon Arrows anyway, so I would stay until I get the Dex and Arcane Scroll as well. If I'm able to obtain Ancestral Robes, I would count that as a bonus, but if not, I think Arams would work just fine. That's the ending of part 2 of this video, Raids. I could go into more detail, but honestly, I'll be improving my strategies when I actually get up to that content, and I don't want to specify too much now when I really don't have enough knowledge on these areas. That leaves us with part 3 of this video, Inferno. As I'm not sure what gear I'll be going into the Inferno with, I'm just going to have a dream gear picture that would be my best in slot items that I think are possible for the Inferno. I think I've talked about most of these items throughout the vid, but I'll quickly mention some of the ones that I haven't. The Brimstone boots I think would be an okay addition to my setup. God D'hide boots might be better, but a lot harder to obtain. The Blessed Spirit Shield might just be too hard to obtain on this account, but I've left it in there for the moment because I think it could be possible, just very, very slow. Anyway, that's about it. I hope I've cleared up a few ideas about my account, but if there are still any questions, I'm happy to answer them if I can. Thanks for watching. Now, this has nothing to do with the UIM, but just to give context for this raid, I needed a background clip for this video, and I decided TOB would be semi-interesting, but I normally try to raid in Aussie worlds as the ping is much better, but no one was currently available, so I just went to the FFA world of 416 and got my very first no-split drop. Funnily enough, this is only the second raid I've ever recorded.